The Well, this meeting is being recorded, Vinnie, so I guess I won't leave. I guess we'll continue as if we're professionals.
No, stick
Well, this
around a
meeting is
minute.
being recorded, Vinnie, so I guess I won't leave. I guess we'll continue as if we're professionals.
You ever hear this phrase, those words will come back to haunt you?
They have come. I've
On
had
this
words come back to
show,
haunt me.
on this setup, it's truer than most.
And the funny thing is, they do come back to haunt you, or sometimes they come back to put a smile on your face, but they can't haunt you. Love your T-shirt, by the way.
Thank you. This is,
The world would be such a sad place without guitars.
it sure would. This is a place that's over in West Seattle, Thunder Road Guitars, a guitar shop run by a couple of guys who love guitars. And
You might love Springsteen too.
yeah, I think there's probably a little Springsteen love going on there. I'm surprised in some ways that somebody hasn't called these guys up and said you can't use that name. But be that as it may, I was over in West Seattle yesterday because the bridge
It's open.
is in operation again. So, and I had thought that these guys may have gone out of business because I had passed there during the pandemic and saw them all closed and locked up and the gates down and everything, and said, wow. As a matter of fact, I passed a couple of times during the pandemic and there was nobody there. And I figured, oh, these poor guys, they're going out of business. But actually, what they did during the pandemic is they took the um, store that was next door to them in their building and acquired that. And so now they have a bigger space.
They must have some regular clientele.
Oh yeah, no, they definitely got. I mean, there's a lot of musicians that live over in West Seattle, as
Yeah,
you
yeah, yeah.
know, and it's a pretty hippie, hip artsy kind of place. Boy, they had this metal flake aqua blue Gretsch. Now,
Oh
as you know,
yeah.
Mikey, I don't play guitar. I'm not a guitarist. I
You
like
did a pretty
hanging
good. You
around
did a
music
pretty.
stores. I like talking to people about playing guitar, but I can't play a lick. But I'll tell you what, this Gretsch that they had hanging on the wall in the Thunder Road guitar store was, I mean, I fell in love with it. I mean, I was just sitting there looking at it and thinking to myself, how in the world could I get this? Right
Oh,
now,
I know
the way I
how.
can get it is if I grabbed it off the floor, off the wall, and ran. And we both know that I wouldn't make it to the front door. Uh, so, um,
Plus, running with guitars is not a good idea. Don't run
yeah,
with
yeah,
guitars.
yeah. It's just it never works out for anybody. It, but it was really just a stunning guitar, and I'm much more of or was much more, am much more of a Fender guy than a Gretsch guy. Although I have owned a Gretsch in the past, and again,
Really?
haven't played it, but I've owned one.
Well, the great thing about Gretsch and how it differs from Fender is Gretsch is a hollow body.
Yeah,
It's a thicker body, and it's hollow like a Spanish acoustic guitar, but it has pickups. So it's not only picking up the signal from the strings like a Fender does, but it's picking up the signal from the sound resonating compartment
right. Which gives it
like a regular
a
guitar does.
fuller, vibrant.
And those guitars can give you feedback problems, but their sound is extraordinary, and they are works of art. You can't take your eye. Gretsch. I mean, Fender makes beautiful guitars. Gretsch makes these sparkly guitars. If you're a rockabilly guy, or if you're a fan of Eddie Cochran, or if you're a fan of
Which I am. Yeah.
so many different sounds that come from the Gretsch sound, especially those from Nashville and the country artists that play there. Most of them play Telecasters, but at the same time, a lot of them play Gretsch because you want that high ends piercing sound. And Gretsch makes one of the most beautiful guitars that I long for. I don't need it. I have a Fender. I don't need it, but I want a White Falcon, and I want it with the Bixby tailpiece and the full triple pickups and the single cutaway, and it's white. It's totally white guitar with gold inlay, and that's it.
Yeah.
That's what could be more simple. And I want one of those. I really
I was
want one of
just
those.
blown away by how beautiful this guitar was. And I'm just sitting there looking, at the guys in the store is looking at me, and he's saying, "You want me to take it down for you?" And I'm like,
Yeah, you
"No."
know, that's an interesting subject you bring up. In many guitar stores, the buyer, the shopper, the guy who's perusing, will just pick up a guitar off the wall and play it for himself, like you do at, say, Guitar Center.
Yeah,
But in some stores, there's probably a sign to the effect, not to be too rude about it, but you don't pick up the guitars, we do. If we drop them, it's our problem. If you
right.
drop them, then you just bought a guitar, or you bought the damage control for the guitar. And I understand that because you don't know who's coming into your shop. You don't
Right.
know who's reaching for that guitar. And
Right.
always
I put
remember what
that in
happened.
my pants if I want. Now, if he handed me the guitar, I would pick
That's
it up and
that's another matter.
play with
That-
it, and he would notice in the first 2 seconds that I didn't know. Well, it's funny, Mikey. I know I just can't do.
well,
For
you got to
whatever
practice.
reason,
You
my
got to practice.
I get pain in my wrists and my fingers when I try to play,
Well,
and it's
that's a
because I
problem.
can't.
The guitarists in the world will tell you that if they haven't played, and this is a professional guitarist, this is a person who puts bread on the table by playing his guitar. If he's been on the road or he's been sick or he's been in Hawaii and something else is going on, he hasn't played for 2 weeks, he picks up the guitar and the guitar is no longer your friend. You
Yeah,
have to earn it back. You have to get back the feeling. You have to get back the touch. You have to get back the gentleness and the intricate feeling of it. And it doesn't take it away. You lost it. And the only way to have it is to play the guitar.
right.
And that's the way with piano. In fact, I talked to a friend of mine who's dead now, Yarda Kettner, crazy Yarda. He was a violinist, but he loved the guitar and he loved rock and roll. And he grew up in the Czech Republic, where they told him what music he was going to study, what violin he was going to play, where he was going to sit in the orchestra. It was when the communists got a hold of music, it wasn't a pretty thing.
Right.
Control and music like that, the two don't work. You got to take 40 guys who are out of control, you make them a symphony orchestra because there's one guy in control, the conductor. So he's telling me that before concerts and on off days, and when it's time to practice, the pros that he played with all his life to play in the symphonies only do one thing. They play scales. Why? Because all the notes are there, because the reach is there. And more importantly than anything else, timing. Boom, 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 boom. Now play it slower. Boom, boom. Oh, some guys can't play. I have a friend of mine who's a great guitarist, can't play the slow lick, can't play. If you're playing a slow blues, too slow. He's ahead of you every time. He doesn't mean to be, but he hasn't played with the slow beat. Yeah, which is what the guys do who play the scales. And it doesn't matter what scale you play, simple C scale, minor scale, it doesn't matter. It's playing it in time and playing it with intonation, holding that note.
Your mind becomes accustomed to playing,
Yes.
and then it's hard to take. It's like when you drive home a certain way, and you make a left in one place and a right, and then one day you're going home and you decide, well, I'm going to go a different way. But when you still get to that first left turn, your whole thing is
Yeah.
now you have to put your mind to not making that left turn.
And that screws you up. Now you're in the wrong lane. You can't go anywhere.
Exactly. Now you're sitting here and you've almost caused an accident because you're trying to get from the left lane over to a center lane or a right lane so you don't make the left turn. It's
Speaking of musicians, I was just watching a video that shows you how unlikely the music business is. Jorma Kaukonen, Jack Cassidy, and Grace Slick were in town yesterday because they finally got their star on Hollywood Boulevard as Jefferson Airplane.
yes, I saw a little note about that.
And they spoke, and they all spoke very nicely. And then Grace gets up. She's the third one to speak, and she says, "I am one lucky bitch." And I'll tell you why. Because I was a screw up and knew nothing about music, and they let me in the band, and I could sing loud, and that got me the gig. And she said, I saw Jefferson Airplane playing at the Matrix in San Francisco, and I thought, this was when Signe Anderson was the lead singer. And I thought, these people are having way much more fun than I am right now. This is what I'm going to do. If if I'm going to be a screw up, I'm going to be a screw up on somebody else's stage. And that's Grace's deflecting of her talents, but at the same time, there's some truth to it.
Now, will they have to put a separate star down for Jefferson Starship or Starship, or
Uh,
or is it all
that's
just going to come under
I think I
Jefferson?
think I think one's going to have to do it. I wouldn't hold my breath for the Jefferson Starship star.
Because they probably sold more records
They may have,
than Jefferson Airplane.
except for that one release of a Surrealistic Pillow. That if I were going to introduce Jefferson Airplane Starship to anybody, I'd start with that one.
Right, but it wouldn't. Now we could argue about this all day. It probably wouldn't be fair to introduce somebody who liked Starship to Serialistic Pillow because it was such a different time and a different sound. Starship was basically made to, for commercials, soft rock in the 70s and 80s.
To get a hit with Mickey Thomas on radio.
Right, exactly. Whereas Airplane was maybe the banner, the standard bearer for the countercultural movement of the 60s.
And they didn't stay very long in that Surrealistic Pillow mode.
No, what they did
right away was
Volunteers.
Yeah, exactly.
And what else did they do?
Up against the wall, blows against the Empire. They became very political. It was a very political time.
Mark or something like that. Yeah. 5-album mark.
After Bathing at Baxter's.
Yeah, after Bathing at Baxter's, which I think was one of their most underrated yet bets. I mean, nothing will beat Surrealistic Pillow.
Well, it caught the mood. It caught the zeitgeist. The image of the time was planted in the music of that record.
Right.
When you hear Marty Balin singing "Coming Back to You," it's like driving across the Golden Gate Bridge at 5 a.m, and it's an imperfect world, but you love every minute of it.
Yeah. That, and She Has Funny Cars.
Yeah.
Which is a great, boom, 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 boom. Yeah, I mean, if there's a perfect album that's not made by 4 guys named John, Paul, George, and Ringo in the 60s,
yeah,
that album may be it. Because it takes you to it takes you to Golden Gate Park. It takes you on an acid trip. It takes you on the Golden Gate Bridge at 5 o'clock in the morning. It takes you through a breakup. It takes you through so many different things that were going on in that space of time. Now, now, to be fair, if you were born in 1999 and you listen to it, you're probably not going to get it.
Well, not the way it was intended.
Right.
The zeitgeist thing is something you can't plan. First of all, the energy of our times, the energy of this day in our nation, it's pretty hard to capture because it's going in more than one direction.
Right.
If I was a lover of Donald Trump and I really believe that God sent him here to lead America into the future, I would probably have a different vision of the zeitgeist than you do. By the way, zeitgeist, 2 great German words: Zeit for time, Geist, ghost. The ghost of the times, the spirit of the times. It's a fabulous word. We don't give Germany a lot of credit for fabulous words because sometimes they're hard to pronounce or they're difficult for us to say correctly. But this one is a game changer because when you grab the zeitgeist for that moment as a writer or a singer or a movie maker, you have to start before that zeitgeist gets going because of the preparation and time it takes to get something right. And then when you finish your work, time has caught up to it and the two come out together and one reflects the other. So you're not in charge. You think you wrote the zeitgeist piece. No, you started writing it before the zeitgeist was there. Right. The zeitgeist wasn't waiting for you. The two just came together, and that's how you get the spirit of the time.
You caught the spirit, but the spirit, once you caught it, took on its own.
Yeah, and I can't think of another example. I guess Kurt Vonnegut was part of the zeitgeist. the Beatles created their own zeitgeist and broke
Yeah,
it and remade it again.
yeah, but it
Um,
would be you'd be hard pressed to say that Bruno Mars has
no,
a zeitgeist, or
no.
I don't know, name many artists of today. Maybe you could look at some of the rap artists, like a P Diddy or something like that, and say that they've caught a spirit,
And the technique and the style and
right, and made it understandable, made it
yeah.
accessible.
It's hard. Like watching what we saw yesterday on television in terms of the January 6th thing. What would a song be like to to reflect what we're seeing in our lives? I always go for the I fought the law and the law won because you can fight the law, and a lot of people love to fight the law. And the image we have of America is "Come and get me, copper." And that we're coming to that stage where the one who says "Come and get me" turns around and it looks like they're there. The cops are at the door. They got did they have him? Not yet. He's not in hand, but he's surrounded.
Right, but he's never going to pay for what he did. I
No,
mean, I think he'll pay, maybe with, um, maybe with some time in prison. Although I seriously doubt we're going to put an ex-president in prison. It's just the optics are not good. Uh,
they are. If you're me,
well, yeah, they are. Yeah, they are. If you're good, but the consequences of it with half the country, maybe just more than this country can handle at the moment.
but that's like saying it's time for Charles Manson to go to jail. This is really going to upset the Manson family.
Well,
They're
but I
going to.
don't care about
They're
upsetting the Manson family. I do care about starting a civil war in this country. And I think if you put Trump in jail for any extended period of time, you might you run the risk of doing something like that. Now, that's not to say he doesn't deserve punishment. Um, as I've believed all along, the smartest move, and I don't know that it's going to happen or not, but the smartest move is for Merrick Garland to say, "Hey, listen, pal, we got you. You're gonna, we're going to indict you on Monday, and we got enough to hang you.
we got enough to put you away for 20 years, three or four
Yeah,
times over.
we're not going to come until Monday. Pack your shit, pack your family, get them on a boat, and get them out of here, and don't come back." And I think that would, if he could you know, his ego is big because he survived so many different things that he should have been eliminated for. He survived the mob in New York. He should have wound up in a trunk after some of the stuff he did, floating in Jamaica Bay. But he didn't. He survived so many other things that, I mean, he's right when he says he could shoot somebody on Fifth Avenue
And no one would care.
and no one would care. He's
Like
right.
his numbers would go up.
He's right. But when you are faced with living in a I don't know, what is a cell, 4x6?
A nice one is 4x8.
4x8 if you get the I used to be the president model.
Yeah.
Uh which is, there's not too many of them around. Uh that thought of losing your freedom like that, uh and the prospect that we would put an ex-president in jail really underscores, I should say, not undermines, but underscores that third world country kind of stuff.
Yeah. Well, but then my only problem with what you're saying is true. But my problem with it is, does that mean the bigger the crime and the bigger the perpetrator, the more we are inclined to withhold justice because of who you are and what you did and what we think might happen as a result of you actually committing the crime. The worst part has already happened. He did commit the crime. He
Right.
did what he said he was going to do. What remains is what crimes can he still commit? Um, And then there's the Al Capone factor. When Al Capone went to jail, what did they do? What did the Chicago mob do? Did they grind their hands and say, "Oh my God, we're finished"? They go, "No." It's
Yeah, they came up with
Capone.
somebody else. That's why Ron DeSantis exists.
Capone's going, "What are we doing? Let's have a meeting. Let's get going here. Let's get organized. Next step."
Yeah, I mean, all of those are possibilities. All,
Yeah.
all, all of that is matter of fact, it's more of a probability. I mean, and, you know, these bad actors are not going to go away.
No.
But I think there's a certain justice in getting rid of him from this country, in essence, imposing a sentence on him, which is a life sentence, is that if you step foot back on United States soil, we're going to arrest you. We're going to put you in jail, whether you're 80, 90, 100.
Then he talks to you every day like Tokyo Rose from wherever he is. You know, he's going to have a television show and a radio show.
Well, but that's the thing. You can't. That's part of the bargain. Part of the bargain is you go away. You get your freedom. You can live on this island or wherever you're going to go, but you can't communicate. You can't. Your time as somebody in this country is over. We have repairs to do, and you can't be part of them. And if he's willing to accept that for his freedom, you know, I don't know if it's a bad deal. I don't think, you know.
It is, but it is that. What about the next time around when it's time to put Lindsey Graham in prison? What island do we send him to?
No, but I don't think you're going to start a revolution or a bunch of people showing up at politicians' doorsteps if you put Lindsey Graham in jail. This is a cult, Michael. This is, to me, in my opinion, this is a cult.
You're right.
And he is the cult leader. And the only way you're going to get rid of him, of the cult, is to cut the head of the cult off.
Now you're talking, because this will not stop until we forcibly stop it.
Right.
It will not stop.
Right. But if you put him in a position of sending him to jail, you probably create a martyr. You probably make him bigger than he ever was. And which I know is kind of hard to believe, but the people who maybe are on the fence, the guys who say, well, Trump is an idiot, but the government's persecuting him. Or the government is doing this, or the government is doing that. You make those people maybe flip over to your side, to his side. And if you get enough of those people, then you have a major problem.
But there's a larger problem, because it's going to come up every time there's a politician in trouble, and that is the rule of law. The rule of law right now does not apply to Donald Trump. The rule of law does not apply to presidents or ex-presidents. The rule of law does not apply to someone who's willing to be so radical and so vicious and so unmindful of the way the world works and the rule of law in this country, that they will break any law, including the Constitution, and do it gladly. Suffer the republic, suffer the democracy, suffer the individuals who get crushed in the fight. Too bad. I want it this way, and I'm willing to take any chance and go to any length to achieve my goals because of who I am. I'm special, and you're not going to put me in jail anyway.
True. I would go with that, except that there's maybe what I call the Rocky factor. And the Rocky factor is in Angels with Dirty Faces, the priest, Rocky's friend, Rocky Sullivan's friend Jerry, pleads with him. You know, when they take you to the electric chair, why don't you act yellow? Why don't you cry? Oh, I'll never do that. I'll never be yellow. What are you kidding me? I'll never do that. And then, as they're leading him to the electric chair, all of a sudden, Rocky starts crying and screaming and grabbing at the radiator. It's one of the greatest scenes in a movie ever.
Yeah.
And the moviegoer, the viewer, is left to try to figure out if Rocky turned yellow at the end, or if he did it on purpose because he wanted to save that group of people.
And you get to see his transformation on the faces of the prisoners who have to hear it.
Right. And and then the kids at the end, walk, Rocky turned yellow, and they were disillusioned that their leader wasn't everything he said he was. And I think in this particular case, that might happen. Uh, I don't know. I just, I think of different scenarios for things, and so in essence, you're doing the worst thing you can to Donald Trump. You are taking away, or you are making sure that the people that believe in him know and find out that he was a fraud.
Well, there's a possibility of that, and that it could come by way of testimony. If he has to sit and answer questions without going off into his television ratings and who does his makeup in the morning, which he cannot do. He cannot help but digress. He cannot help but talk about the size of the inauguration. He cannot help but talk about somebody else's emails or the whatabouts or the what about this and what about that and what I told you that this was coming like that. And they put all my friends in jail. And they're harassing me personally. They're after my kids. They're after our fortune. They're trying to take over. They hate me because I'm so rich. I'm so rich. How rich? Oh, can't even begin to tell you how rich. Let's see your taxes. Well, as soon as the audit's over,
Yeah.
of course, I'll be glad to share that information with
Well,
you.
yeah, he's a BS artist, and listen, he has. I read an article about this last week. I can't remember where I read it because I read so much these days that I'm blanking on where I read it. But the gist of the article is that Donald Trump brought New York politics national. He took the what's been going on in New York for years and made it national because New York
You agree with
politics has
that?
always been about revenge.
Yeah.
Has always been about you do this to them, I'll do this to you. It's not about who the most qualified is. It's about who sucks up to who, and it's been like that ever since I was a kid, and certainly way before that. It was like that in the days of Boss Tweed.
Ah, Boss Tweed. There was a bar on West 70th Street, West 72nd Street, Boss Tweed's.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, so the only thing that Trump has done really is taken that brand of politics, that kind of Chicago, New York, Philadelphia, Boston type
Machine politics.
right, machine politics, and he's taken it to the federal level. If you go and look in the annals of New York politics, it's loaded with people that have um, you know, lost their jobs because a politician didn't like them, or given a job over somebody else, even though they weren't qualified for it because they had a certain amount of patronage in the clubhouse, in the club, all of this kind of stuff. As a matter of fact, Trump is on more than one occasion talked about Meade Esposito,
Yeah.
who was the Democratic boss of Brooklyn in the 60s and the 70s, I believe, and how Meade Esposito ruled Brooklyn with an iron fist.
Somebody had to.
And if you needed something in Brooklyn, you went to Meade. You didn't go to the politician. You didn't go to your congressman. You went to Meade. Charles Schumer became a senator because of Meade Esposito. Um,
That's where he learned how to talk on the phone to the attorney general, tell him to
yeah,
get his law and order people in line and to get over there to help him.
yeah. I mean, I remember when Schumer was a state assemblyman, and he
But
knew how to suck up to Esposito, and Esposito got him a heartbeat away from the presidency. There,
now he's Chuck.
now he's Chuck, but a story how it went the other way is Donald Mattis, the former borough president of Queens, got involved with a parking ticket scandal where they were fixing parking tickets, and they formed a corporation so that they could take over the city's parking ticket administration.
Oh, brother.
So they had complete control over the parking tickets. Again, machine politics.
And how much is that worth a day in New York? What do you think the daily take for parking tickets is in New York?
I mean, you couldn't. I don't even think you could begin to figure it out. I mean, I don't. Parking ticket in New York now is $100. Um, I don't know how many tickets they give out a day, but it's got to be 100,000 at the very least, I would think.
So we're talking about real money.
So we're talking about real money, and these guys weaseled themselves in to get not only get 10% off the top or 15% or whatever it was, but also to have the ability to fix a parking ticket, to make a ticket disappear.
And
Not
that's easy.
even the police commissioner
Right.
could make a parking ticket disappear in New York. Once that ticket, if a cop wrote a ticket and the ticket went to the house, once it went in that basket, you couldn't get that ticket out. You had to get a judge after that.
That's why they figured out the best way to fix tickets is you pay for it. Your friend got a ticket and you want to fix it. Here's how you fix it.
Well,
You
yeah.
pay.
I mean, I think I've told the story, the great story of the guy. I told this at a political meeting here in Seattle, and people's mouths dropped. There was a guy who was in Meet Esposito's Brooklyn, and this guy wanted to get a cushy job. So he went to Meet Esposito and he said, "Listen, I can fix parking tickets. I got a friend who's got a friend. I got a friend." He says, "Yeah, sure. Nobody can fix parking tickets. Come on, I know the borough president, Abe Stark. He can't fix parking." He says, "Got any parking tickets?" "Yeah, I got a drawer full of them here. Give me them." So he goes, comes back a few days later. He says, "All right, they're gone." Esposito has the secretary check. They're off. They're all done. They're gone off his record. So now he gets another guy. He says, "Okay, do this guy's parking tickets." So the guy hands him, I don't know, 3, 4, 5 tickets. He takes it. He says, "I'll be back in a couple of days." He comes back. Guy gets the computer, puts it in the computer. All his tickets are gone. So now Meet Esposito has a guy sitting in his office that can get rid of parking tickets. Nobody else in the city can do it. So, okay, the guy says, "Listen, you got to be something special. You got to know somebody. We need a commissioner of yada, yada, yada. It's a $90,000 a year job. You don't even have to show up. All you got to do is when there's a disaster, you go out and you stand in front of the cameras and tell them everything's in control." Guy says, "Oh, I love it. Love to do it." So the guy gets a $90,000 a year job with the city.
He's going to need the money.
All right. So, but Esposito says, "Fuck that. Listen, I got to know. How did you do it? Who do you know?" He says, "I just went down and paid him."
That's how you get rid of a ticket. And you'd be surprised how quickly it comes off the charts.
So he spent, a few $100. At that time tickets were $15. He spent a few $100 and made himself look like he could do something that nobody else could do. But the corrupt people were so into the corruption
They couldn't see another way.
that they couldn't see that there was a perfectly legal way to do this.
Cheap, and it's over in a hurry.
Cheap, it's over. He paid it. So he spent, maybe he spent $1,000 to get a $90,000 a year job.
Pretty good investment. Pretty good investment.
Pretty good investment. The only thing the guy was smart. That's all.
And if you think like a criminal, you can't possibly think of another way that might be legal to solve your problem because it just doesn't cross your plate. It doesn't come to mind. It's never on part of the discussion.
It doesn't excite you. Part of being a criminal, part of being in that criminality part of it is that you can do something that other people can't.
And get away with it.
The allure of the mafia is they can do something that other people can't. They can run a crap game when other people get busted for it. They can get you TVs that fell off a truck when nobody else can. And you don't have to fear getting caught with it because they've taken care of the right people. So it never comes upon them to do it in a legitimate way because there's no fun in that. What fun? I mean, at the end of Goodfellas, what is it when Ray Liotta stands up and says, "Now I'm just a schmuck that, I order spaghetti and meatballs and I get, spaghetti with tomato ketchup on it. I'm just another schmuck." It's got no
Yes.
appeal for those guys.
No, not at all. You'll be fine. How? As another schmuck. You just be a schmuck with all the other schmucks. You go, oh no, that's not a life for me. That's not the way I can live.
It's like when you're in radio and you don't have a radio job anymore.
Oh, I want to say goodbye to WMMR in Philadelphia. Playing rock and roll since 1968. Beasley Broadcasting comes in and fires Paul Jackson, who's been there 18 years. For what? That's their savings? Oh, yeah, here's how we're going to save Beasley Broadcasting. We're going to fire that afternoon guy on the rock station. That's what's been holding us back all this time. That's been the corporate anchor around our neck since 1968. This jerk's been playing rock and roll records in Philadelphia. How we're going to be a great American company if we allow that.
Well, what are they going to put there? I mean, Beasley is actually a pretty good company.
Well, they're having a bloodbath now that's in its second week.
Yeah, I mean, I know some people that work for Beasley, and they've turned around a ton of stations, especially in Vegas. They have, I don't know, 4 or 5 stations down there, and in Central California, I think they have a few stations, and I think they've, from what I understand, are a good company to work for. Good company to, except I guess if you're on
Well, today,
WMMR, then maybe it's not such a good company to work for.
today it depends who you ask, Vinny.
Yeah, well, I mean, that's, we have a business that nobody knows what to do with it, Michael.
It's true.
We have a business that people are putting articles in trade papers saying, "Please tell us what to do."
Somebody tell me who I am and where am I?
And that's never a good sign. When you have to put an article in the newspaper or in the trade papers to ask people what you are, what
Can
should
you,
we do? We have this $1 million commodity here, this signal, this air that we can project out with a message.
we don't know what to do.
We don't know what to do with it.
Can you imagine an ad in the Hollywood Reporter? It says, we have the money to make a movie. We're going to make a movie. We're starting Monday morning. There's a couple things we have to figure out. We don't know what the movie's about. We don't know any writers, so we don't have a script. We haven't got a camera, but we're going to get one. We don't have anybody to act in this movie, but we're going to get some people who can act as soon as we figure out what we're doing. So would somebody please tell us what movie to make? Because we're starting Monday morning at 6 a.m. and we need just a little help, just a guidance in the right direction.
Well, that's basically what you have right now with radio. You're gonna confab. They're gonna get together. They're going to try to figure out what to do with AM radio because they have no clue. They're moving all of their AM signals over to FM.
WINS.
WINS been on AM for years and years and years, and now they've decided to move it over to FM, which makes sense. Here in town, you have a Cube that was on the air here for how many years? A landmark station in town, FM station. And what is it now? It's KJR FM sports radio.
They would have never thought that in our day, would they?
Well, somebody must have thought about it because I certainly suggested it when I got back to town before I got back to town, when I saw what CBS did with the Fan in Pittsburgh and moved, Pittsburgh was a city where the number one rock and roll stations were all FMs, and they were all number one, number two, number three, number four in the market. You had an AM station that signal you couldn't hear down the block from the radio station, even though it was the first radio station ever
They
in the
just couldn't
United
figure out
States of America.
what they do with that signal all those years, for crying out loud.
I don't know. They did something screwed up because you couldn't hear it.
KDKA.
KDKA. And so this town that had all of these FM signals were at the top of the ratings didn't have an FM sports station. So they finally decided to put one on.
And there it is.
Take their guy talk station, their man talk station, whatever they, and switch it. And they're consistently, since they switched over, they've been consistently number 2, number 3 in the market, next to WDVE, which is the KGO ratings wise of Pittsburgh.
Right.
It's been on the top of the book for 20 years, and I don't think it's going anywhere.
I hope not. Well, the show that we do here every day, Monday, Wednesday, Friday at 10:10 in the morning, is going to be a little shorter today because I'm going to go get my third booster. They're going to put it in me, and I'm one of the people who gets sick when he gets the flu. Yeah, it's happened. I've had two regular shots and 2 boosters, so I'm 4 for 4.
Oh man.
For one day, I just get sick for one
sick,
day.
I think one out of the 3. I'm going to go get my 4th. I'm actually going to see if I can go down there today and get it.
Well, I'm going to skate. And by the way, it's harder until this week, till last week actually. It was harder to book those appointments in Los Angeles if you want a Moderna, which is what I want. I'm sticking with the same one through my experience. So that's where I'm going to be going in a second, Vinny. So tell me about your weekend show, please, so we don't forget about it.
We will do a show tomorrow called Drive Time. We will have part 2 of our EV immersion, give you an idea of what it's like to own an EV vehicle, not just for a week where we test them, but I submerged myself for 3 weeks. Immersed myself, I should say. And
I like it when you submerge yourself.
yeah,
That's good.
but I always come up with the armpits. And it was interesting because it is a different lifestyle. You have to plan things. You can't just go off willy-nilly and not worry about the fuel in your car because you need to know where the charging stations are and so on and so forth. So we'll talk about that. And we will review the Mercedes station wagon, the E-Series station wagon, which is a much overlooked car, but yet has something that I haven't seen in years, Mikey.
What?
A back seat, the third seat that faces outwards.
I like that.
Remember the old country squires used to have them? You had that third seat that faced the other way.
You get in the back seat and they close the tailgate on you, and you're
tailgate through
yeah.
the tailgate.
Right.
And you close the tailgate and you're looking back at the drivers waving at them. Loved those seats when we were kids. Mercedes has it, and we'll talk about it tomorrow. Plus, we have our car song of the week, our cartoon, and some news about different things that are happening in the world of automotive. World of automotive, there's stuff happening every day. It's amazing.
It's a revolution, and for people who have electric cars who are driving a friend's car and have to go to a gas station after not being there for 6 months, they don't know how the cards work. They don't know how the machine works. They don't know how the interface works. I don't want that. I want this. I want. Do you want it? And it's stuck on. Do you want a receipt? And it won't go any further until you say yes or no.
Yeah, it's a different world. You hook up different. You do different things, and we'll delve into that and maybe some of where the future of this charging is going to go. So we have that, and listen, big weekend for the Mariners. They got to win 3 in a row. I don't see it, but
well, I don't see it either. But we didn't see the way they finished the season, and that's what they're going to have to reclaim. The Wild Boys. The Seattle Wild Boys approach to winning games. And I thought we were getting there last night, even after the guy got picked off first base and they had the double play. The next guy up puts a double off the wall. And I go, hey, here we go. This is how we do it. 1 run at a time. A home run now and the game's tied.
Yeah.
And I expected it. I expected something dramatic. and we had some drama, but it was all Texas.
Yeah, it's I don't know why you pitch to that guy. I don't know what the reason is that you would give him anything within 2 inches of the plate. I'd
I think
rather
we're
throw him four and walk him.
I think we're seeing Scott Service as being the nice guy who's going, what's the worst that could happen? Let's throw him a couple balls. He seems like a nice guy. Why would he do something to hurt us? Let's see what comes of this. If he gets a hit next time, we'll know for sure. Okay, I'll give you that. Yeah, okay, Scott, thanks.
I think when that guy comes up now, for every at bat he comes up, he walks. I don't care if it's in the first inning. I don't care if bases are loaded.
Because
I
he's as
don't
big,
care.
he's as big as Aaron Judge, and he's on a roll. What more do you need?
He's the best hitter in the American League over the past, I don't know, 2 years. Don't give him anything.
Yeah, that'll probably blow over. Those numbers can be made to say anything you want. Let's give him one. Let's give him a meatball down Main Street and see what he thinks of it.
Well, they did it again last night. They gave him the same meatball down the same street. All the stores were open. Everything was the same.
All the stores were open, including Thunder Road Guitars.
Including Thunder Road Guitars over in West Seattle. Go see him if you want to. If you want to see a beautiful guitar, go stop by and see that Gretsch. Just make sure if they hand it to you to wipe off Vinnie's drool from it.
Vinny, I gotta go, but have a great weekend. Have a great show tomorrow at 8 o'clock Seattle time.
8 o'clock Seattle time. We'll be here on the internet on KKNW. Mikey, have a good stab, huh?
I'm gonna get a good stab, and I'll be sick for one day, and by Saturday evening I'll be back in the pink.
I will talk to you on Monday, if not before, my friend.
Okay, see you, man.
Peace, love, and Manischewitz. And if the Lord's will and the creek don't rise, we'll see you back here on Monday.
Monday. Monday. What a wine.
Peace.
Peace, love, and order a pizza once in a while.
Peace, love, and Manischewitz, Mikey.